The U.S. Congress has passed the One Big Beautiful Bill, the most significant piece of legislation of Donald Trump's second term. Law aims to solidify temporary tax cuts from his first administration, escalate the federal deficit and debt ceiling, and introduce changes to the tax code, such as tax breaks for tips and overtime. Controversy and divisions. The approval of this bill was anything but smooth. It faced substantial opposition, even from within the Republican Party itself. In the Senate, Vice President Mike Pence had to cast the tie-breaking vote for the bill to pass, as 3 Republican senators, Susan Collins, Tom Tillis, and Rand Paul, voted against it, and warned it would destroy millions of U.S. jobs and cause immense strategic damage. Furthermore, these earnings will still be subject to Social Security withholdings and state and local taxes. Many critics argue that the law favors outdated industries while harming future ones, effectively mortgaging the country's economic future. This measure aims to provide financial relief to a demographic segment that often faces fixed incomes and rising living costs. This is a clear move to bolster the domestic automotive industry, aligning with Trump's America First economic policies. Initially, Lisa Murkowski also opposed the bill, but was swayed by promises of billions of dollars in funds for Alaska. The bill has drawn sharp criticism from figures like Elon Musk, who called it a fiscal suicide. However, critics view this as a mere temporary fix that exacerbates the long-term problem, increasing the risk of a global debt crisis. The fear is that continually raising the debt ceiling without addressing underlying spending habits is akin to expanding a credit limit without increasing income, ultimately leading to a precarious financial situation. It could erode international confidence in U.S. treasuries, leading to higher interest rates, slower economic growth, and an even greater challenge in meeting financial obligations. These cuts will be implemented by tightening access conditions. This particular change marks a departure from historical Republican stances. As such, deductions traditionally favored high-tax states, often seen as a disincentive for fiscal conservatism. However, the political calculus appears to have shifted, indicating a desire to court voters in these more populous, often higher-tax states. Economic and fiscal impact. The One Big Beautiful Bill includes several key fiscal measures. Reduce taxes on tips and overtime, while heavily publicized. The actual impact will be minimal, as only 12% of Americans work overtime, and a mere 2.5% receive tips. Latinos are the second largest group dependent on Medicaid after white individuals, with around 30% of them utilizing the program, a trend that is continuously growing. New federal, state, and local tax deductions. The annual limit for SALT deductions will quadruple to $40,000, primarily benefiting states with higher state income taxes, such as California. Despite these spending cuts, the Trump administration's new law is projected to further exacerbate the nation's severe fiscal problems. Deductions for seniors. Individuals aged 64 and over will be eligible to deduct up to $6,000 from their federal income tax. Incentives for domestic auto purchases. Borrowers taking out loans to purchase U.S.-assembled cars and earning less than $100,000 can deduct up to $10,000 of the loan interest. Despite the widespread attention given to tip and overtime tax breaks, the new SALT deductions are expected to have the most significant impact, making it one of the most heavily funded agencies in the country. Critics warn of fiscal suicide that could mortgage the country's economic future and severely impact social programs benefiting vulnerable populations. The long-term implications of these choices will undoubtedly be a subject of intense debate and observation in the coming years. A substantial portion of these funds will be directed towards the border wall, with Mexico and the construction and management of new immigrant detention centers designed to hold at least 116,000 immigrants simultaneously. This unprecedented funding level suggests a robust and aggressive approach to immigration enforcement, far beyond previous administrations. It also signals a move toward more expansive and permanent detention infrastructure, reflecting a long-term commitment to a strategy of increased detentions and deportations. The primary concern surrounding the bill is its effect on the nation's fiscal stability. The U.S. has been grappling with fiscal imbalances for decades, with last year's deficit reaching $1.8 trillion and the national debt currently at $36 trillion. Projections indicate that the debt could exceed 180% of GDP by 2054. Trump's law which echoes tax cuts from his first term, is expected to accelerate this budgetary misalignment, accumulating at least another $3.3 trillion in additional debt over the next decade alone. This staggering figure is roughly equivalent to doubling Spain's GDP or the entire economic output of France, underscoring the immense scale of the projected debt increase. To fund this, the bill provides an initial $25 billion in spending. Additionally, it allocates an extra $150 billion to the Department of Defense, with the ultimate goal of achieving a $1 trillion defense budget by 2026. This ambitious defense spending plan will enable the acquisition of new warships, Virginia and Columbia-class submarines, surveillance vessels, and amphibious landing ships, vital for transporting Marines, particularly in the context of potential conflicts, such as with China. Furthermore, increased procurement of F-35 fighter jets, the purchase of a $1 billion X-37B spaceplane, and a growing number of military satellites are also planned, all contributing to the significant expansion of the defense budget. To buy time, the bill also includes an increase in the annual debt ceiling from $4 trillion to $5 trillion, allowing the U.S. to borrow more. Cuts to social programs to balance the books. The bill proposes cuts to crucial social programs, a move that has ignited considerable controversy. Medicaid. Trump aims to cut Medicaid spending by a staggering $930 billion over the next decade. Despite his previous promise not to, healthy adults with children over 14 will need to prove they work at least 80 hours per month to qualify. Eligibility will need to be renewed every 6 months instead of annually, adding bureaucratic hurdles for vulnerable populations. States will be permitted to charge enrollees up to $35 for certain services if their income exceeds the poverty line. This could create significant financial barriers for those already struggling. These measures are projected to leave approximately 12 million of the current 70 million beneficiaries without medical coverage, a drastic reduction that could severely impact the most vulnerable segments of the population. Impact on racial groups. The Medicaid cuts carry significant political implications, particularly concerning the Latino vote. Poverty in the United States disproportionately affects minority groups. Although Donald Trump secured a significantly higher share of the Latino vote than anticipated in the last election, Medicaid cuts could impact millions of Latinos, potentially leading to disillusionment and a decline in his approval. Indeed, recent polls already indicate a drop in Trump's approval among Latino voters, falling from 43% to 39% between February and May. This demographic shift is crucial, given the growing electoral power of the Latino community. Alienating this base through policy decisions that directly impact their well-being could have severe repercussions for future electoral prospects. Many within the Republican Party are reportedly concerned about this potential backlash, highlighting the tension between fiscal conservatism and political pragmatism. In addition to Medicaid cuts, the bill also includes reductions in food stamps and the termination of subsidies for green energy initiatives. Other objectives of the bill. The One Big Beautiful Bill also pursues other significant objectives for the Trump administration. Immigration. The bill seeks to accelerate mass deportations by allocating a massive $170 billion to immigration and customs enforcement defense. Trump aims to bolster U.S. defense capabilities with the Golden Dome project, an air defense system conceptually similar to Israel's Iron Dome. In conclusion, the Big Beautiful Bill represents an undeniable presidential victory for Trump. Yet it also carries substantial economic risks by aggravating the public deficit and debt.